Kia ora everyone. So I am really excited to be making this video. In my most recent upload, I had mentioned the fact that I got back into stand-up, and it was a really brief, high-level sort of overview, and what I want to do today is go into a bit more detail. And I thought it would be, this has probably become apparent by now, but I really like structure, so I sort of want to start off with some background, how I got into the comedy scene when I moved to Melbourne, and then I want to talk about my performances. I have done stand-up twice, and yeah, my hope is that this will kind of be a bit of a recurring series, I guess, because it's been pretty great so far. And yeah, let's just get into it. To recap, I am originally from Auckland, but I did live in Wellington for a couple of years, and when I was there I decided to try stand-up for the first time. I kind of had some experience because back in school I did theatre, and whenever we had speeches, I mean pretty much what I did was a stand-up routine. I wasn't the only one. There was definitely a couple of other people who were so funny. It was a good time. Yeah, and I think it, like, the first time I went, there's not a whole lot I remember, although I have to say, on my old YouTube channel, I did make a couple of videos about my experience, so I'm really interested to revisit those videos, but you know, that'll be for another time. What I do, something that really sticks out in my mind is the MC for that night. Hey, unfortunately I don't remember his name, but I might do a little bit of digging and put it in the description or somewhere if I do remember, because he was so warm and energetic, and really lovely. I remember him saying something to the effect of, okay, you know, comedy's hard and it's a really nerve-wracking thing to get up on stage, so, you know, give some love to the people who are getting up and performing tonight. Just, yeah, honestly, so awesome. It's, you know, it's been some time now, but I'm pretty sure I performed 3 times. First time, awesome. Second time, not great. Third time was the best. And I reckon that probably had something to do with the fact that the comedy festival back home, it was sort of in the midst of all that. And, you know, I think there's like, you know, when you have an event like that on, people are just they're in the right headspace. That took me forever to get all the words out, but and it's a really good feeling to get the laughs, you know, because the second time I performed, the audience was very quiet. I don't remember all my jokes, but I can look back and be honest and say, you know what, they weren't really that good. I feel quite proud of the progress I've made. And then, you know, life happened, things got really stressful, trying to find a stable living situation. That was a challenge. I'm not gonna get into it, but there were just so many different things going on, and then I moved back to Auckland just a little bit before the lockdown started happening, so I think it did work out for the best. And now, after all those years, I'm back, which is very cool. When I first moved to Melbourne, there was a lot of stuff to organise, and that's, you know, that's always the case when you move somewhere new. And I know that when I lived in Wellington and I looked up open mic nights the first thing that came up was Raw Meat Monday, which is what I have just talked about. Here, however, it seemed a bit more tricky. When I looked up open mic nights, I did manage to find a couple of lists in a few different places, and I realised, oh gosh, this feels like it might be a bit more difficult. You know, I mean, Melbourne, it's a lot bigger, there's a lot of people doing comedy, so I thought, wow, like, am I even going to be able to get a spot? You know, I'm very fresh. I don't really know anyone here. The one thing that I found particularly discouraging is I found this Reddit post that I thought was super helpful. It was like, oh, a list of all these mic nights and, you know, the different people to contact. However, I think it was an older list, and I think someone had commented like, oh, this doesn't run anymore, this doesn't run anymore, oh, like this and this shut down because of lockdown, and I was like, ugh. And listen, just like being real, being authentic, since moving, you know, I've still kept in touch with family, and having a roommate who has lived in Melbourne her whole life, it's been pretty amazing because she's given me lots of tips, tricks, advice, and there's a lot of stuff I know about because she said, you know, you should go here to buy this, or this is where the best secondhand stores are, you know, etc, etc. So that has been super, super cool. Definitely want to acknowledge that. At the same time, there have been plenty of occasions where I felt quite isolated, quite lonely, just getting a bit overwhelmed. It doesn't always happen. And like, I've had a few cries since moving over. I shouldn't scoff at myself. It's like, you know, that's just what it is. You know, you have your ups, you have your downs. It happens. It's fine. Emotions, feel them. So certainly in the initial stages, I was like, yeah, just not really knowing where to start, I guess. And then I found a Facebook group that was just an excellent resource for all the different events going on. And I made sure, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna message a bunch of different places. I will say my timing was very poor because it was, I think it was like just, maybe a week before Melbourne International Comedy Fest kicked off. I was messaging being like, hey, I want to stand up. Where do I go? And the thing is, when the comedy festival's on, a lot of the venues book up with various different, you know, acts from all over. So I'm like, cool, well, I'll just have to be patient, and I think pretty much wait till the end of April before I can secure a spot. However, it did kind of work out quite well because there was an open mic not midday, but like afternoon sort of event, and I thought, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I did. First time doing stand-up in Melbourne. Let's talk about it. I don't know what was going on that day. Definitely feeling nervous, being a bit of an anxious person. That was 100% a contributing factor. I don't know, could have been something I ate that day or the day before. when I got on the tram, I was feeling so nauseous. Truly, I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to message and say that, you know, I can't make it, I'm feeling sick. There were times on that journey where truly I just thought I'm going to have to get off at the next stop and just like throw up on the sidewalk. I'm not going to make it. Because speaking of, that is something that has happened to me previously. I don't know whether it was food poisoning or whatever, but I went out to an event and I was like, oh no, I'm feeling really sick, so I had to go all the way back to the flat. I made it pretty much to the station, and then when I got out of the train, I just had like a grocery bag and I threw up into the grocery bag, and so that wasn't very fun. So I don't know, I think I just, it was like, it wasn't an ideal first experience from that perspective. But I think as time went on, you know, I started to settle a little bit. The other issue, however, is I forgot to top up my phone. I'm just doing like a prepaid sort of thing, and I should really do automatic recharges, but I do not. So luckily, I had looked up how to get to the venue because it wasn't in the city, it was slightly outside of the city, and of course I'm new here, so I'm very much still learning where everything is, which is going to take some time. But yeah, you know what, I ended up getting there in one piece, and I have to tell you, one of the thoughts that was going on in my head, like I just have this internal battle that is constantly going on where I'm walking towards the door and there's that voice, that very anxious voice in my mind that's saying, you don't have to do this, you can turn back now. And I was like, no, I'm here, this is happening, I'm gonna do this. And yeah, so the thing that I've learned since moving here, and to be fair, I don't really know how this is all over, you know, in other parts of the world. But certainly for Melbourne, it's very much a bar / comedy venue kind of combo. So I went up to someone at the bar, she was super, super lovely, and I was like, hey, just want to know where I go. So she introduced me to the team, I wrote down my name, had a chat with, I think, one person in particular, and it was just kind of, it's nice to go out, nice to socialise and meet some new people. And I will say, it was an interesting, I'm just trying to think of how I kind of feel about that first experience on the whole, because something I said in my previous video is I was so proud of myself because I had practiced and practiced and practiced. I remembered everything. You know, I pretty much stuck to 5 minutes, which was awesome. And this new person that I met, it was really cool. He filmed my performance, because that's something I want to make sure I do, is film all of my stand-up, because, you know, it's just good to have a record of it, and it's really helpful to be able to look back and see, okay, like what worked, what didn't, how can I sort of move things around. What else? I think it was an interesting one, because I feel, because it was a bit earlier in the day, it almost felt a bit more, I don't know, like chill, informal, I guess. In that respect, it was quite a good way to get into things, because there wasn't a big crowd. I would say, including the comedians, man, it must have been maybe somewhere between 10 and 15. And I'm just trying to recall all the details now. I think you know, because people have busy lives, and what often happens is that a lot of the comedians, if they're going on a bit earlier, they'll do their performance and then they will dash off to do, you know, whatever else they have to do. And I acknowledge that I have said, yes, I have, you know, I have stuff recorded. I'm not going to be sharing it. At some stage, I think I will. For now, it's more just, you know, for my personal reference. And I will say, even if I did want to share this first performance, watching it back, you know, you could hear like the bar and like cutlery and cups and all this background noise, and I think it was kind of louder than me talking, so you know, wouldn't really be able to hear me anyway. But I gotta say, I just afterwards, I felt so relieved. All that anxiousness it just melted away, which was awesome. And yeah, I felt quite accomplished. My second time performing stand-up went really, really well, although initially there were a few hiccups. So I was feeling really good because I knew exactly when I was on. There was a group chat that had a list of who was going when. Now there was one person who wanted to switch and go a little bit earlier, and I think just how it worked out, there were a couple of options of who she could switch with, me being one of them. And here's the thing, I was put down to go second, which I thought, oh my gosh, that's kind of great, because it's not the pressure of going first, but it's early enough that if I'm feeling the same way I was the first time, you know, I can just get my performance out the way, my nerves can settle, and then I can just enjoy a night of comedy. The thing is, I do want to be accommodating, and it's definitely something that I think I'll do moving forward, because funnily enough, all the nerves I had the first time, it just wasn't the case this time. I do wonder though if that's because of the ordeal I had trying to get to the venue. So I got the train to the city, and that went pretty well. I think I still had a bit of time on my hands, and in order to get to the venue, I would have to catch a tram, which should take, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Unfortunately, a fire truck had stopped on the track, and then the person driving the tram said, just so everyone knows, we can't move until the fire truck moves. And I was like, oh no, that's not great, because it was approaching 8:30, the event started at 9, and so I was like, oh dear, I'm gonna have to walk. Now I will say, it's a bit of a brashy thing for me to be like, oh, how inconvenient, you know, if an emergency's happening, and like that takes priority over my my evening activities. If they have to stop where they have to stop, then that's how it is. But I was just like speed walking all the way to the venue. I had messaged in the chat, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, my bad for the, you know, the lateness. But you know, the responses I was getting was like, you know, all good, don't stress. I will say I was stressing, you know, I think that's probably become apparent. I am, yeah, a bit of a nervous child. But I ended up getting there at 8:55. I just sort of sat down and relaxed after my long walk. And yeah, I think things got moved around and I ended up going third, which was fine. And it was just so satisfying. Like I really liked this venue, and I would say with the comedians, pretty sure there must have been 20 people, maybe like 15 to 20, and I was getting the laughs where I wanted to get the laughs, was feeling really good about that. And I've even had some learnings, even just from the few times that I've performed, which is that I feel like I want to get better at being comfortable with the silences, you know, between building up to jokes. Because there's some people where they will tell like really like snappy jokes. For me, like I really like telling stories, which is a bit tricky when you're doing open mic night, because this one was you got 4 minutes 30. So I think I was doing a lot of work when I was like practicing and practicing to really like cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. And also something I haven't packed in but might come into play is, you know, if audiences end up wanting to, you know, shout out and participate, yeah, that's something I also want to start working on, is, you know, doing a bit of crowd work and getting back into improv, because I used to do that quite a lot at school. So I think, you know, if you don't work a muscle, you lose it. So yeah, I really want to build those skills back up. Anyways, to be honest, there's more that I could say, but I have spent so much time rambling and saying the same thing over and over again. My camera has once again run out of space and it could stop recording at any second now. So I will just leave things there, but definitely I can see this becoming a series because yeah, I just want to keep performing. It's really fun. It's a good time. Good way to get out of the house. Good way to meet new people. Good way to get back into something that I'm just really passionate about, that I really love. So yes, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.